Hello, welcome to Working Dragon Mystic. I'm Drake. Today I'd like to talk about the Arcane Senses, or as some people call them, the clairs, your psychic senses. And I'm only going to touch on them briefly because I'm wanting to try and get all 5 of them in today and discuss, at least give you a little way to start working on them. I do plan to do a video on each individual one to give you some techniques and meditations to help really develop them. The first one I'd like to talk about is arcane sight, also known as clairvoyance. This is the ability to see things, whether it be entities, spirits, even energy that we encounter in our day-to-day magical practice. This is how we would see it. If you do evocation work and they talk about the entity appearing, you need your arcane sight in order to see it. Also seeing auras, you use your arcane sight for that. One of the big misconceptions with the arcane senses is that it always has to appear exactly as it will with your physical sense. And a lot of times that's not the case. Usually it starts with an impression or even an image in your mind's eye. Children are wonderful with this one because their imagination's not limited, and that's exactly what you're going to be tapping into here is your imagination. But just because you're seeing it in your mind's eye does not mean you're making it up. You got to let yourself go and trust that the information coming through is what you're getting. That's the hardest part here for most people. So what I would do to start developing this particular arcane sense is I would actually take a pretty detailed object and look it over, scan it, get to know the details. Here I have just a little camp lantern, and what I would do is I would actually take and I'd look it over, get to know it really well, and then I would actually then close my eyes and try to visualize every detail in my mind and just try to recreate this. You're not at this point attempting to see anything on the other side, no entities or anything, but you are developing your ability to see that image on your mind's eye and to understand how it appears to you. Everyone's experience is going to be slightly different. You have to also get to know yourself. One of the biggest rules in magic or life in general is know thyself. And this exercise is a wonderful way to start doing that. Once you've got one object down, use another one. Try more complicated ones. You can start with simpler ones. And you can even do it blindfolded so that you're not tempted. A lot of people mentally, their eyes are still usable, so it creates a block. If you blindfold yourself, your eyes are immediately, your conscious and subconscious mind knows you can't use them. So that helps you tap into that mind's eye just a little bit better, so you can give that a shot. But this is how I would start developing this one, and in the next video we'll talk about some meditations and stuff that we can work on auras, energy, and get you moving into actually seeing things and entities from the other side or around you that aren't visible with your physical sight. The next one I'd like to talk about is arcane hearing or clairaudience. This is where you hear entities and things on the other side. Even energy. I've noticed that energy tends to have a sound to it. Many of them come across very musical-like to me. Not all of them. I know that there's at least one that has a very, I don't know, I guess I'd describe it as a crackling fire kind of sound, which is interesting. But again, this one is, all these are going to start internally with your mind, because we are creatures of mind. Our very consciousness resides in our mind, and so one could argue that our very being is there too, and that our mind is only translating data to recreate what it is we think we see or hear. And your arcane senses work on the same principle. So what you need to do is get something you can hear. Start with a simple sound. A bell, a whistle, something. Repeat that sound a few times over and over. I actually prefer drumming, a nice drum beat, and hear that, listen to it, and then block your ears. You can either just hold your hands up, fingers in. You can get you a set of earplugs. If you're one of those people that happens to have noise cancellation headphones, those are wonderful. But then you want to, once your ears are blocked and you can't hear and the sound is no longer playing, you want to now visualize and hear or imagine that exact sound. Again, you're replicating a sound in the physical world that you know is real, and you're replicating it. This is to train your mind and your conscious and subconscious to know that when you are hearing this, it is something that exists. And it also helps you to understand how these sounds would replicate to you. In the case of arcane hearing, a lot of people tap into this one and arcane sight without even knowing it. If you've ever seen anything out the corner of your eye, that was your arcane sight picking it up. Phantom sounds, again, that's going to be your arcane hearing picking up a sound that physically might not be there, but you're still picking it up all the same. But for training your arcane hearing, start with a simple sound like a drum beat or a bell. If you have a singing bowl, that note is a wonderful one. Just strike it once. And move yourself up. You can even do songs. A lot of people, if you ever got a song stuck in your head, congratulations, your arcane hearing is torturing you. Same concept. So spend some time working with this over the next few weeks while we get the other videos ready, and find out how it is you relate and how you process your arcane hearing starting out. It will get stronger, it will get better, but you need a base understanding, and that's what I want you to do with this exercise. The next one you don't hear a lot about. It's called arcane smell, also known as clairscent. And yes, I did look down. I have them wrote down here because I cannot remember the clairs to save my life, which is why me and a lot of other people simplify them to arcane sense or psychic sense. In this case, it's if you've ever smelled a phantom smell, that is what this is. It is your sense of smell. And a lot of people say they smell sulfur or leaves. Some will even say they smell phantom smoke. All these phantom smells are being picked up by your arcane scent or arcane smell. And this is actually not one we hear a lot about because most people's like, well, I don't want to smell an entity. I don't want to go around sniffing them. And I get that. But energies do have smells to them. You will find out that those energy patterns can have smells. And even inside a larger energy pattern, for example, Earth, different aspects of Earth energy can actually smell differently based upon what you're picking up. Like a tree, for example, it would be part of an Earth energy pattern, and its leaves and its flowers will have a distinct smell if you're tapping into a specific tree's energy. Whereas just earth itself is going to smell very earthy and dirt-like. So these are little tips to help you identify energy patterns more in detail. And it can also help you to identify, your surroundings. If you're doing journey work, you can actually partake in the actual surroundings and get a better, more realistic grasp on where you're journeying. But this is also a great way to identify phantom scents in the house. Find out what's coming, what's going. The big one for me is during visualization work, when you are wanting to call something in or journey somewhere, the ability to conjure a phantom scent and feel it helps you attune to the area, makes journey work to go and astral travel easier, while at the same time, if an entity or something is associated with these, you can easily project that into the surroundings and help bring that entity closer to you. This one, just like the others, find something you can smell and sniff. Incense is wonderful, scented candles, food, beverages, anything that has a scent to it. And then you want to block your nose so that you can't smell. And you want to focus on trying to recreate that in your mind. And again, see how you directly associate with that and how it functions with you. Really take the time to get to know it and you yourself with it. And this will help you in your magic. I know this one sounds weird. I know it sounds silly. And I've spent a lot of time laughing at it myself. But this one can actually be very useful, and we will get into some ways later in other videos how you will actually be using this. I use it a lot in evocation and journey work. The next one I'd like to talk about is Arcane Taste, or Claire Gastance. This is exactly what it sounds like, and it's also one that's overlooked a lot, much like the smell. This is taste, the ability to taste things. And this one does come in handy very much during journey work. If you ever breathe in, you know that the air can have a taste to it when you're in the woods or out in nature or by the beach, that salt water-like taste to it. Foods will have a taste to them, obviously. And this one may not come into play as often, but I still find it very important. One of my favorite memories working in Magick has always been one of my guides. He loves wine, and he's always got a bottle of wine with him. He had me try one, and I was able to taste it. It was delicious, and I saw the bottle, I saw the year on the bottle, and like 3 months later, me and my wife was at the store, and there was that bottle, same year, on the shelf. I bought it. I had to buy it. I had to know, and when I got home and tried it, it tasted exactly the same. So this is a case where my arcane sense of taste actually was genuine, and I was able to even reproduce and test it in the real world. And again, this allows you to experience the other realms in trance work, journey work, in a way that you might not if you don't train it. And this one, you will begin working on it just like the others. You're going to notice a pattern here. Taste something, try something. Cleanse your palate with something other than it after you do. So, for example, let's say you want to go with a red wine. Fine. Taste the red wine, know exactly what it tastes like, and then cleanse your palate with like club soda, something just to wash it out. And after tasting a few small drinks and letting it sit on your tongue, then try to reproduce it in your head. You can do this with grape juice as well, any beverage, coffee. Try to pick out every little detail you can and try to reproduce it. Just like in the other exercises, you're shooting to know how it reproduces in your internally so that you can process that information. This one can be a little trickier because a lot of people's palates aren't very strong to begin with. And if that's the case, your arcane taste will resemble that at first very much. However, if you're a chef or somebody who has a really, really strong palate, this one may not be too difficult for you. There are people who they'll know what stuff is going to taste like when you put them together for ingredients before they ever put them together. Those people are definitely in tune with this particular arcane sense. So yeah, give this one a try, and again, learn how you associate with it. Right now, these exercises are all about understanding how these arcane senses translate to you. That's the biggest thing you want to take away from these. The final one I want to talk about is arcane touch, also known as clairtangency. And this is one of the ones you hear a lot about. This is where you say you'll feel energy, you'll feel a resistance. This is all about literal, tangible feelings that you would get on your skin or even internally. And this one deals a lot with temperatures and textures. The way I generally prefer to have my students begin this one is to start with different textures and reproduce them. So an example of this is an apple and an orange. Grab the apple, feel it, feel its texture, feel its weight, feel its temperature, because it's actually going to, usually when you first pick up a fruit, it's going to be cooler, well, if it's in the house. And feel the texture. To me, apples always tend to have almost a hard, rubbery, waxy texture to them. And you want to try and reproduce that in the other hand that's not holding the apple. So, and then you want to try and do the same thing with no apple at all. Next, move to a different item, something like an orange. An orange is going to be similar. It's going to have a weight to it. It's going to have a temperature to it. But its texture is going to be different. It's going to have more ridges, more bumps to it. And you want to try and feel those differences. Next, actually get water. Just dip your finger into some water. What's it feel like? What's its temperature? What's its texture? Because water will have kind of a texture to it. Do the same thing with, you can do it with dirt, salt, and you can move up to more complex things. Again, you could use the lantern. That lantern's going to have a texture to it, like candles, anything that you can pick up, hold, feel, and actually just feel it in its texture. Those are wonderful to work with and start reproducing. Have fun with it. I do know somebody that used a candle because they wanted to feel heat. You can do that. You can do that. Not a lot of texture to a flame. But if you do use a candle, be careful. Don't hurt yourself. I'm not going to be responsible if you get burned. So please try to stay safe. I would probably stay away from fire, electricity, and stuff like that. I know people have done it. It can work, but just because it can work doesn't mean you should do it. I would stick with something safer, something that you can hold, don't have to pay attention, don't have to worry about burning the house down or burning yourself. Anyways, these are the 5 arcane senses. Do practice them, and a lot of people use arcane senses, psychic senses, mainly because the clairaudience, clairvoyance, those words get confusing, and if you actually do some research, you'll find out there's a lot more than 5 of the clairs. In my work, I usually focus strictly on the 5 because I find out that a lot of the other clairs overlap into those 5, and it's a lot easier to communicate and understand if you just say arcane taste, arcane sight. It just self-explanatory, really. I know if you understand the words and you've read the words and you've done your studies, clairaudience and clairvoyance, these are all, people's like, well, it's just like saying the same thing. And it is, but it just keeps the communications a little clearer a lot of times, I feel. And if you have an accent or a twang, it can be easier to pronounce too. So I like to keep things simple, and so those will be the terms I'll be using when I'm talking about these. Would be the arcane sight, arcane hearing, arcane taste. But I will be making videos to go into more depth on each of these and give you some meditations and practices to work with them. In the meantime, try the little exercises I gave. I know they're not a lot, but the video's already running long, and we just barely touched on them. But I wanted to introduce you to them, give you something that you can start working on, and also give you terminology that you're probably going to hear me use quite a bit, so you're not confused. So I'm Drake. Thank you for joining us. This has been Working Dragon Mystic. Please like, subscribe, and click the bell icon so you don't miss any videos, because we plan to continue releasing more. We've already got 2 more in the making, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you.